The CEO secretly followed a black single mother working as a cleaning lady after hours. What she discovered changed everything. "She's stealing something, I'm sure of it." The words echoed through the executive office of Sterling Corporation as Amanda Pierce, 38-year-old CEO, stared intensely at the security camera feed. On screen, a black woman in a blue uniform was pushing her cleaning cart down the hallway of the 23rd floor, seemingly doing her usual duties like she had for the past 3 years. But Amanda felt something was off. In the past 2 weeks, several confidential documents had mysteriously gone missing from her desk. Million-dollar contracts, acquisition strategies, sensitive data, things that if fallen into the wrong hands could ruin the negotiations she'd spent months building. And the only person with after-hours access to her office was that woman. "Her name is Roberts, right?" Amanda muttered, adjusting the camera's focus to get a clear look at Grace Roberts, 42 years old, single mother of two, working at Sterling for 3 years now. A woman who always kept her head down, answered questions in short phrases, practically invisible in the company halls. Practically invisible. That phrase alone irritated Amanda. Grace had grown up in one of the city's most violent neighborhoods, raising Tyler, 16, and Mia, 12, on her own, after their father walked out the moment she got pregnant the second time. She worked 2 jobs to maintain a 2-bedroom apartment, with Sterling being the main source of income, $8.50 an hour, to clean offices of people who earned more in a day than she did all year. "This can't be a coincidence," Amanda continued, muttering, her manicured nails tapping on the Italian walnut desk. Documents disappear, and she's always there. What Amanda didn't know was that Grace had already noticed weeks ago that she was being watched more closely. Security staff had started asking vague questions about her schedule. The other janitorial workers whispered that upper management was investigating something on the night shift. Grace was all too familiar with that look. She'd seen it at the supermarket when security would quietly follow her. At her kids' school when other parents gave her suspicious glances just because she wore a cleaning uniform. It was the look that said, "This person doesn't belong. This person is suspicious." On screen, Grace stopped in front of Amanda's office door, swiped her card, and stepped inside. Amanda sat upright, watching her every move through the internal camera. Grace emptied the trash, vacuumed the carpet, wiped down the surfaces, all routine efficient. But then, there was a moment that made Amanda hold her breath. Grace paused in front of the desk and her eyes scanned the stack of papers. That's not a casual glance. She's reading, processing, understanding. "Got you," Amanda whispered, both satisfied and furious. She finally had visual evidence of suspicious behavior. But what Amanda didn't know was that Grace wasn't reading those documents out of curiosity or greed. She was trying to understand why a company that preached family values was planning to lay off 200 workers before Christmas, something she'd accidentally read the week before. Grace had watched her own mother be fired 3 times for budget cuts. She knew the signs of a company about to destroy working families for profit. Amanda picked up the phone and called the head of security. "Johnson, I want you to discreetly follow the cleaning lady from the 23rd floor after her shift today. Grace Roberts. I want to know where she goes, who she meets, what she's doing. Is there a specific suspicion, Ms. Pierce documents are missing. She has access to my office. There's no other logical explanation." Hanging up, Amanda returned to watching the camera feed, feeling like a detective on the verge of solving a major case. She had no idea that Grace Roberts was holding on to secrets that would flip her entire definition of who the real thief at Sterling Corporation truly was, secrets that explained why a high school dropout cleaning lady could read and comprehend corporate contracts like they were instructions for using a mop. The next morning, Amanda arrived at the office 2 hours early, eager for Johnson's report. The head of security was already waiting, holding a file in his hand, his face showing visible confusion. "Ms. Pierce, we followed Ms. Roberts as instructed." Johnson began opening the folder. "But what we found was rather unusual." Amanda leaned forward, expecting solid evidence, a shady meeting, a suspicious document exchange. Instead, Johnson laid out photos on her desk. Grace leaving Sterling, stopping at a discount store to buy groceries, then heading to a small apartment in public housing. She cooked dinner for her 2 kids, helped the younger one with homework until midnight, then headed to a nearby hospital for her early morning cleaning shift from 5 to 8 a.m. She slept 3 hours, then got up to make breakfast for the kids. Amanda frowned, annoyed by how ordinary the report was. So, anything else? Yes, ma'am. Something quite unexpected. While she was helping her son with homework, we looked through the window and saw her solving advanced math problems and organic chemistry high school level, but college quality explanations. The boy was struggling and she was tutoring him like a professional teacher. A strange feeling stirred in Amanda's gut, something nameless, but she ignored it. Maybe she just Googled it or memorized some lines. Desperate people always try to look smarter than they are. Johnson hesitated. One more thing, Ms. Pierce. We did a deeper background check on Grace's employment history. Before this, she worked night shifts, cleaning at accounting and law firms, all of which had access to confidential documents. And at every single one of those places, not long after she started the company, either won or lost a major lawsuit in ways no one could explain. Amanda felt a surge of adrenaline, finally, a suspicious pattern. Dig deeper. I want every step she takes tracked. And Johnson... She paused, weighing her words, increased surveillance. If she's planning something, we need to strike first. Meanwhile, Grace Roberts could feel the eyes following her down the Sterling hallways. 30 years of life had taught her when she was being hunted. That same instinct had warned her when Tyler was being pulled in by the wrong crowd. The same instinct that made her take a detour when security started tailing her at the supermarket. During lunch break, Grace sought out Denise, one of the few black managers at Sterling. They sat in a secluded corner of the cafeteria. People are asking about you, Denise whispered, glancing around anxiously. HR security, even a few senior execs. They say documents are going missing. Grace nodded calmly as if she had expected this. And what did you say, Bear? The truth. You're the most reliable worker we've ever had. Never late, never calls in sick, never complains. Denise looked at her, voice dropping low. But Grace, be careful. You know how these things go. When the company needs a scapegoat, they always pick people like us. Grace looked out the window at the Sterling Tower glittering under the sun, where executives earned more bonuses than she could dream of in a lifetime. Denise, let me ask you something. Have you ever actually read the contracts you typed up for the company lawyers? Of course not, they're confidential. Even if they weren't, I wouldn't understand that legal gibberish anyway. Grace smiled faintly. What if I told you I understood every word? That I know exactly what Sterling plans to do to 200 workers next month? Denise's eyes widened. Grace, you didn't even finish high school. How could you possibly understand corporate contracts? You're right, Grace said, standing up with a sly smile. A janitor isn't supposed to understand that kind of thing. But what if things aren't so simple? That night, Amanda decided to investigate for herself. Dressed casually, she drove to Grace's apartment complex. From her car, she saw the third-floor unit still lit at 11 p.m. Through the thin curtain, Amanda could see Grace at the kitchen table, surrounded by books and documents. But not novels or magazines, dense texts, complex charts, and advanced academic materials. Tyler, her 16-year-old son, approached and handed her a mug of coffee. From the way they interacted, Amanda could tell Tyler didn't just see Grace as a mother, but as a mentor. Amanda pulled out binoculars from the glove box, adjusted the focus. On the table, she recognized a copy of Sterling's quarterly financial report, the very one she had left on her desk the previous week. But beside it, Grace had hand-drawn charts, detailed analyses, and intricate cash flow simulations. How does a janitor have the ability to analyze like this? Amanda muttered, caught between anger and something else. Grace looked up, and for a moment that felt eternal. She stared directly at Amanda's car. Even from a distance through binoculars in the dark of night, Amanda felt seen, analyzed, understood. Grace didn't flinch. She tilted her head slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if to say, I know you're there, and you should know I know. Amanda lowered the binoculars, her hand trembling. For the first time since becoming CEO, she felt out of control. Worse, maybe she never had control at all. As she drove back to her penthouse apartment, Grace's gaze stayed with her. It wasn't the look of someone caught red-handed. It was the look of someone who had been waiting to be discovered. The next morning, Amanda called an emergency meeting with the entire security team. I want full surveillance on Grace Roberts' video-audio track, her every move within legal boundaries. I want to know everything. Johnson hesitated. Ms. Pierce, this could be considered racial profiling. Harassment. It's not about race. Amanda cut in coldly. This is about protecting corporate property. She entered my office after hours and was acting suspiciously. But even as she said it, Amanda knew she was lying to herself. What truly unsettled her wasn't just the missing documents, but the look in Grace's eyes the night before, a gaze that seemed to see straight through her when she herself knew nothing about the woman in front of her. Meanwhile, Grace arrived at work as usual carrying her worn leather briefcase. Denise stopped her in the janitor's locker room. "Grace, I have to warn you. They installed new cameras in the hallway on the 23rd floor. And I heard they're going to start searching employees' bags." Grace nodded calmly, placing the case in her locker. "Thanks, Denise. But don't worry about me. How can you stay so calm? It's obvious they're targeting you." Grace turned and looked at her friend. In that moment, Denise saw something in her eyes she had never noticed before. A cold, calculating intelligence completely unlike the meek janitor everyone thought she was. "Denise, have you ever wondered why someone with a systems engineering degree from MIT and an MBA from Harvard would be working as a night janitor?" Denise's jaw dropped. "Grace, what are you saying I'm saying? Sometimes people have to hide in plain sight to uncover truths they otherwise couldn't reach." Grace smiled, a cryptic glint in her eye. "And I'm also saying, Amanda Pierce is about to find out that the prey isn't always who she thinks it is." That night, Grace went about her usual duties, but this time she carried a discreet device that she connected to the office computers while she cleaned. Not to steal, but to upload meticulously prepared files exposing a 5-year corruption scheme within Sterling Corporation. At the center of the evidence, electronic signatures and verified emails tying Amanda Pierce to tax evasion and manipulation of government contracts. Tyler Grace's 16-year-old son was her most vital ally. A computer prodigy like his mother, he had tracked suspicious financial activity and built a covert backdoor into the company's servers. Mum, Tyler whispered as Grace came home at 2 a.m. I cracked the board member's inbox. "You need to see this." On the screen, a string of internal emails revealed how the company planned to frame employees with fake theft accusations. Grace's name appeared repeatedly as a top priority target for elimination. Even worse, Amanda had ordered Johnson to plant confidential documents in Grace's locker if no real evidence could be found. "They're planning to frame you tomorrow morning," Tyler said, pointing to an email sent just 3 hours ago. "They're going to find the missing files during a surprise locker check." Grace smiled, not with fear, but with satisfaction. "Perfect, just as I predicted." She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in 5 years. "Marcus, it's Grace. I need you to cash in that favor you owe me. Yes, it's time. I want you and the FBI at Sterling by 9 a.m. I have enough evidence to take down the entire board." Marcus Chun, federal investigator for corporate crimes, had once been Grace's classmate at Harvard. He knew if Grace Roberts was calling, she had something massive. The next morning, Amanda marched through Sterling's corridors like a predator closing in on its final kill. Johnson followed behind, holding a small box, the evidence just discovered in Grace's locker. "She's not here yet," Amanda asked, adjusting her blazer. "Confirmed. Grace Roberts will arrive in 5 minutes for the day shift she requested yesterday." Amanda smirked, a cold, cruel smile. Forcing Grace onto the day shift was a clever move. Firing her in public would be far more humiliating than a quiet termination at night. But when they arrived at the staff break room, Grace was already there, calmly organizing her cleaning cart. Beside her stood Tyler, filming everything with a handheld camera. "Good morning, Mrs. Pierce," Grace said, without even looking up. "Hope you slept well. I imagine last night must have been tough thinking about what's going to happen today." Amanda felt a chill down her spine but kept her authoritative posture. "Grace Roberts, under suspicion of stealing Sterling's confidential documents, you are officially terminated. Security will inspect your belongings." Johnson opened Grace's locker. Just as planned, he pulled out a file folder. "Ms. Pierce, these are the contracts missing from your desk." Grace looked up. The gaze made Amanda take a step back, not out of fear or despair, but interest. "Perfect," Grace said, turning to Tyler. "You got all of it. Every second, Mom, especially the part where that guy planted the files in your locker." The blood drained from Amanda's face. What did you just say?" Grace slowly removed her apron, revealing a sleek, understated business suit beneath. "I said Tyler hacked Sterling's entire security system 3 weeks ago and recorded every single conversation where you plotted to frame me." At that moment, a firm voice echoed from the end of the hallway. Amanda Pierce, Marcus Chun entered the break room, four FBI agents flanking him. You're under arrest for corporate fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy to sabotage an employee. Amanda staggered back, dazed. No, this is insane. There's no proof. Grace stepped forward, no longer the meek janitor, but a commanding, razor-sharp woman. She took a tablet from Tyler and held it up to Amanda. Want to see the proof? On the screen, Amanda's emails instructing Johnson to plant evidence. Audio recordings of her scheming to eliminate Grace. Financial documents exposing Amanda embezzling $2 million from the employee retirement fund. Amanda stammered, How? How did you get all this? Grace handed her a business card. Let me reintroduce myself. Dr. Grace Roberts, systems engineer MIT, MBA Harvard, and for the past 3 years, undercover FBI agent investigating corporate crime. Amanda froze. No, that's impossible. 5 years ago, I blew the whistle on similar corruption at my previous firm, and they destroyed my career. The FBI gave me a chance for strategic revenge to expose corrupt companies from within. Sterling was my first target. And you, Amanda, were the perfect bait. Marcus nodded. Dr. Roberts has compiled 3 years' worth of evidence, tax evasion, bribery, fake contracts. Your company will be shut down, and your entire executive board will face criminal prosecution. But she was just a janitor, Amanda screamed as they cuffed her. That, Grace replied, was your greatest weakness. You saw a black woman in a uniform and assumed she was invisible, worthless, inferior. You never imagined she had degrees from the best universities and was there to take you down. 3 months later, Sterling Corporation officially closed its Central Chicago branch. The executive board dissolved. 6 C-level executives were indicted on charges including tax evasion, financial fraud, and labor market manipulation. Among them, Amanda Pierce was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison with no parole due to deliberate destruction of evidence and obstruction of federal investigation. A photo of her in designer clothing, hands cuffed, shielding her face from reporters, went viral, a symbol of fallen privilege. And Grace Roberts? That name no longer exists. She returned to her true identity. Dr. Grace M. Langston, veteran undercover FBI agent specializing in white-collar crime. The media dubbed her the woman in the blue uniform who shook Wall Street. From mop to a $200 million corporate takedown. At her Senate hearing, Grace wore a simple black suit, her hair in a neat bun, eyes calm but penetrating. Behind her stood Tyler, her son, and now her fiercest tech partner. Senator Maynard, once a critic of the FBI's use of non-elite women in investigations, bowed his head in a public apology. Dr. Langston, this nation owes you a debt of gratitude. Grace said nothing, only gave a slight nod. She hadn't come for recognition. She came to remind people anyone you overlook as invisible might be the one who sees the darkest corners of the system most clearly. Tyler received a full scholarship to Stanford. Denise, Grace's friend, was invited to join the executive board of a nationwide corporate reform foundation. All the janitorial staff previously exploited by Sterling were granted compensation and retraining opportunities. A week later, Grace returned to the old Sterling building, now converted into a workforce support and rehabilitation center. She walked into the janitor's closet on the 3rd floor, where everything began. The elderly security guard looked at her, stunned. Didn't expect... You really were an agent, Grace smiled. I'm still a cleaner. The only difference is, now I clean up filthier things. He burst into laughter. You cleaned out an entire empire. Grace turned to look down the long corridor, once filled with sneers, mocking laughter, and meetings that decided the fate of workers. Now it was eerily clean. She tightened her grip on the broom handle. Yeah, and maybe I'm not done yet. 6 months later, Grace Roberts walked those very same hallways, this time as the National Director of Corporate Integrity, a position created specifically for her by the company's new board. Her salary, $200,000 per year, 23 times more than the $8.50 hour she once earned as a janitor. Tyler, now 17, had just been accepted into MIT with a full scholarship, the same university where Grace once earned her systems engineering degree. Mia, now 13, was president of the coding club at a private school funded by a scholarship foundation Grace established using a portion of the reward from exposing the Sterling scandal. As for Amanda Pierce, she learned the hard way that falling from the top of the power pyramid hurt more than climbing it. Sentenced to 15 years in prison for financial fraud and conspiracy to defame an employee, Amanda now lived in a 6 by 9 50 cell sharing space with a cellmate who couldn't care less about her businesswoman credentials. Pierce, your turn to scrub the toilet, the guard yelled, tossing her a blue uniform identical to the one Grace once wore at Sterling. The irony wasn't lost on anyone at the federal prison, the fallen CEO, now a janitor. At Sterling Corporation, reform was complete. Under new leadership, the company rolled out industry-leading policies on diversity and inclusion. At Grace's recommendation, janitors, security staff, and maintenance workers received a 200% wage increase. They were also granted lifetime education scholarships for themselves or their children. Denise, now head of HR, often told new hires a lesson they wouldn't forget. For 3 years, we all walked past Grace Roberts every night without truly seeing her. How many brilliant people are we overlooking just because they don't wear a tailored suit? Marcus Chun, the federal investigator, used the Sterling case as a model for a national anti-corruption training program. At conferences across America, he declared, "What made Dr. Grace Roberts' work so remarkable was that she proved the best investigations are done when you become invisible to those who judge you by bias." On Grace's new desk stood a photo of Tyler and Mia standing next to the cleaning cart she'd pushed for 3 years. It wasn't a photo of humiliation, but a reminder that dignity doesn't come from the job you do, but from how you do it. One morning, as Grace was getting ready for another day at the office in her new leadership role, Tyler asked, "Do you ever miss the time you were a janitor?" Grace smiled, adjusting her blazer, which now felt like natural armor. "I miss the simplicity and honesty. At night, while cleaning, I saw people as they really were when they thought no one was watching. Now, as a director, it's much harder to see through the masks everyone wears during the day." The biggest lesson wasn't just about justice or clever revenge. It was the deadly mistake of underestimating someone based on how they look. Amanda Pierce built an entire empire on the belief that wearing a janitor's uniform meant you lacked intelligence, that black skin meant you were lesser, that social status defined mental capability. Grace Roberts proved that all those assumptions weren't just wrong, they were dangerously self-destructive for those who held them. While Amanda was pouring all her energy into chasing someone she saw as just the cleaning lady, the real threat was quietly gathering evidence, preparing to bring down her entire empire. The office Grace now sits in is the very same one Amanda once ruled from, with one key difference. The walls are covered with photos of employees, from executives to janitors, celebrating personal and professional milestones. A gallery of honor that serves as a daily reminder: talent and dignity exist at every level of society. Grace often says in her talks on ethical leadership, real power doesn't come from having control over others. It comes from how you use your position to lift others up. Amanda had authority but no strength. That's why she crumbled so quickly when faced with someone who had both. In an interview with a business magazine, Grace was asked, "Did you feel satisfied when Amanda fell from grace?" Grace's response went viral. "Satisfaction doesn't come from seeing your rival defeated. It comes from building something so solid that every attempt to tear it down only exposes how fragile the attacker really is." Tyler and Mia often ask their mother, "Mom, weren't you angry?" after 3 years of being invisible at Sterling. Grace always answers, "Anger just wastes energy. Those 3 years taught me this." True strength doesn't come from your title or your salary. It comes from knowing exactly who you are, no matter how others choose to see you. The story of Grace Roberts and Amanda Pierce spread quickly throughout the corporate world, a modern-day warning that in an age where information is power, underestimating someone due to bias is the fastest way to hand them the keys to your kingdom and watch them burn it down. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed a relaxing and captivating storytelling experience. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support gives me the motivation to create more amazing content.